Regionals next week, and I'm wondering if I should be altering how I do my sessions before I lift leading up to it, and if there's anything else I need to keep in mind. So yeah, I would probably unload Gavin. I mean, basically keep practicing the events and stuff like that. I would keep everything the same, and then like probably maybe like 3 days out, I would just cut everything. Just let your body completely recover. Even 4 days if you want. It really depends on how much you've been training. And then, yeah, go that route. Should feel really, really good leading into that. Hey guys, box squats, do you just touch and go or do you actually sit on the box for a bit? I prefer if people can put their weight on the box that they do it. The way that Fabian does it, I really, really like. So if you've seen the way he does it, he actually sits down, rolls forward, and then kind of hits his feet into the floor. I like that as an option. So you could give that a try if you want. You can also touch and go if it's uncomfortable, though. But my preference would be the first one. What does training look like for a pro soccer player looking to get faster in the off season in terms of frequency of lifting, sprint work, general days, and jumping in a week? How do you periodize sprint work in relation to the above? So if you're in the off season, then you have the luxury of actually working on training, in which case I would probably recommend doing like a standard setup I would do for a track guy. Now, if you're playing a lot in the off season, then it's going to change. And you probably need to look at it in terms of what boxes you're checking and not checking. When I worked with pro soccer, like a men's team from North Carolina, they did a lot of playing in the off season. Like it wasn't really the off season. They were just technically it was the off season, but they were still playing a bunch. During that time, if guys would have just taken the time to like get stronger and really, really train and commit to like a 1 month cycle, it would have been way more advantageous. So I would recommend like sprinting, 2 to 3 days a week, lifting 2 to 3 days a week on the same days, general days twice a week, standard high-low setup. Was wondering what the next phase is going to be. Will there be sprinting? I like sprints. There can be, Wilvin. Let me check. Ooh, you're actually supposed to unload a bit, Wilvin, but we don't have to. But that's the next logical progression for you. So you could do that afterwards, but if you want to jump high, I'd recommend like not nuking yourself. Or ankle before or after every workout. I would probably do it before, as a warm up. Either one's fine. And I would start with the ankle's a little bit tough. I would probably start with every other day, and I would do it after actually, and then see how you respond. If you respond well, then I would up it to no, I would do it every other day. I would do it every other day after workouts. You can do it every day if you go like high low, but I would assume you probably need some time to let it recover. I bought spikes. Is it best to do sprints on a track with spikes or without spikes? Oh, this is like you recently got them and you're wondering if you should stay in flats. You generally you want to transition into spikes slowly. If you're used to them and you've been sprinting a lot, then you can jump into them, especially if you're younger. If you're older, once a week, if you have sprinting more than once a week, then you can put them in, but don't sorry, my allergies are really bad today, guys. You can put them in, but I would do it like in very small volumes. So like start with like let's say you have 6 sprints on a Wednesday. Just do one or two of the sprints in spikes and then do the rest in flats. Like start in flats and then put spikes on at the end of the session. That way you're like extra warm because it loads your Achilles a lot more, and you're going to be running faster. So there's a little bit more risk. It feels like recently I usually push myself too hard for my knees to recover, but not hard enough to make progress. How do I balance listening to my body, but also progress or with listening to my body with also pushing myself and making progress? Ooh, that's a good question. So you should be recovering week to week. If you're not recovering week to week, then you're pushing too hard. If you're recovering week to week, then you're pushing the right amount. If you're recovering week to week, but you can't push on the lifts, then you might need to have shorter jump sessions or jump every other week. And that way you're able to push on the lifts when you have the lifts. It seems like for you right now, you are over jumping. Oh yeah, you're jumping twice a week. So if you're not bouncing back for that second jump session, this type of cycle is just too much frequency of jumping for you if you feel like that. Let's do this for 2 weeks. And then once you do 2 weeks of this, I want you to come back to the group call and we'll talk about it, but you should feel a lot better. And you'll probably feel like, oh yeah, I like this way better. I feel like I can make long-term gains. Jumping twice a week is not for everyone. And it seems like that's the problem you're having. Hyperextensions, how many times a week is 2 times okay? I don't know what you're asking specifically. Oh, lower back. McGill Big Three, yeah, twice a week is fine. It depends on if you have issues with your back. If you have issues with your back, do McGill Big Three every day. So the curl up, the side plank, and the curl up, side plank. What's the other one? Bird dog. And then walking 15 minutes. Like that's if you have back pain. If you don't have back pain, you don't have to do that. The training will probably check some boxes for you. I am now in my actualization phase. Was wondering what I should cue in my brain to get maximum results. This is a really, really good question. So you want to think about what your best jumps feel like. If you don't know what that feels like, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But generally speaking, when man, this is a good question. When you're trying to actualize things, you're balancing timing, which is sequencing your hip, knee, and ankle. So you're sequencing from proximal to distal, which is very, very difficult. You're balancing the neural aspects being as fresh as they'll possibly be. So you can't necessarily cue that. Your brain is going to do that just because you've had time off. You're getting the benefit of a unconscious reflexive pattern in your brain happening. And if you talk to a lot of high jumpers, they'll be able to explain it. But dunkers sometimes have that sensation. If you've never had that sensation, it is a it's like you're unconscious. You're not unconscious. You are very relaxed and you're actively shutting your brain off so that your body can respond in a very reflexive way. You don't want to
John, I
force
heard that people said, I think Ben also said this in a story, that 95% jumping is better than 100% jumping just because you're not
not volitional.
restricting. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it
Yeah.
was something to do with the amount of water that's being released in the tissue, in the tendon when it's being stretched.
Yeah, there's also some evidence that indicates like it's somewhat related to that, like the proximal to distal sequencing. But like when you have timing wrong, tendons are viscoelastic, and so you can start recruiting a muscle prematurely. And what will happen is you won't store as much energy because you might get on and off the ground faster. But when we're talking about the maximum amount of energy that your tendon is able to store and release, you don't want to rush it. So for you, I mean, you could try a couple different cues. I would say like let the energy build. You could try bouncy. I would try relaxed and bouncy. Like less is more whenever you're thinking about it. Visualization is really good. If you've had really, really high jumps and you know what they feel like, then that can really help. If you haven't had that sensation, then you're gonna have to play around with different cues. So
I think I'll close off with this last thing here that I feel like the biggest holder back because I'm plateaued around 27, 28 this whole year on THP. I think it's my power RFD work because my squat is strong. Last time I talked to you a few months ago, you
yeah,
told me to get deep squat and strong.
and
I
that's
got strong. Three
okay.
six like
I know I
315,
saw that.
320. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
it very well could be that because if you're really, really strong, but you lack, especially like isometric RFD and your timing is really, really bad, then you might just be leaking all of the energy out. We can do some problem solving a little bit later. But right now unload first because your RFD should go up a lot when you unload and we'll just see what happens. But I would tell you stay relaxed, feel bouncy, let the energy build up in your legs before you push up. Let the energy build up in the tendon before you push up. Should feel like a ton of energy builds up in your legs before you push through the ground. That's probably the best way I can cue it for you for now. But yeah, it'll be interesting. We're just collecting a bunch of data. Oh, do you do the drills on Tuesday and Thursday upper body help for jumping, or is it fine if I do my own? You can do your own, but I like the upper I have in there. It is designed to make people more athletic. Okay, PFP got it checked again as John suggested by PT. We started some therapy to help with the process, and he said to limit knee extension and do posterior chain work. Exactly what we're doing. Perfect. Feeling better after my last session. He told me to try some jumps, see how it goes. It's at its lowest. Is my PFP is at its lowest, and the clicking is now painless, and I'll stop worrying about it. My question is, I'd like to specifically implement, or I'd like to implement specific ball control drills, but I have no idea how to do it. What can I do to get better hands? Thank you. I wish Isaiah was here, but I do know the answer to this. So he, I don't, this is a good question because he's changed his view on it over the years. He used to think that if you do, low rimming as fast as you possibly can, then your hands will get better. Now, I don't think he thinks that quite as much, but I would recommend trying it and seeing. So Isaiah back in the day used to every single day he had a low rim outside of the trap house that was where Austin used to live. This place was hilarious. It was like the most dungeon-esque disgusting little house I've ever seen. And Austin still owns it. It's pretty funny, actually. So every day when I first started coaching Isaiah in like 2018, he would go out because he wasn't allowed to dunk, but he was afraid he was gonna like lose his technique. He would go and low rim, but it was like at like barely where half your hand can get over the rim. And he would, as fast as he possibly could, walk through and do all of the arm actions that he needed to hit that dunk. So, for example, like if it were a 360 behind the back between the legs, he would have the ball in his hand, he'd take a dribble, and then as fast as he possibly could, he would pump the ball up, put it behind his back, put it between his legs, and then dunk on that like 7 foot hoop. Or I guess it would have been like probably like 6'6" or something like that. Because, or wait, 7'6" because his reach is about 8 feet. So that forced him to learn how to go through the arm actions as fast as he possibly could and still finish the dunk uh, perfectly because you're actually dunking on like again like a 7 foot or 7.5 foot hoop. And so he did that. He would do like it was ridiculous. I mean, this was probably his most like manic dunk phase ever, but he was doing 2 to 3 hours of that a day. He did eventually get shoulder issues from doing it, but his hands definitely got better. Like they 100% did. And he used to do ball speed drills too in the garage. And so he would do the Pete Maravich drills as well. And he would do those for like 30 minutes a day. And yeah, eventually he started to get shoulder issues. So he had to do it like every other day. And then that's actually why he got on archery strong. So I would say don't overdo it where you hurt yourself. But I do think that that stuff does work for specifically learning trick dunks, especially when you get into things like lost and found or 360 behind the back between the legs or like the windmill where you bounce it off the backboard and then finish in a reverse windmill. Like those sorts of dunks require you to be very, very, very good with coordination, understanding like kinesthetic awareness and proprioception. And I think that that stuff helped Isaiah a lot early on. This is when he was like 19 to 22, maybe. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. I had 9-7 dunk. Dude, congratulations. But now I've been dealing with some back pain. I'm thinking from deep back squats because I have butt wink. I feel it when I RDL, clean and squat, front or back. I get to my 4 set of uh, hand cleans with a pause today and felt it again. So I cut the cleans there and it just felt with the bar. I skipped that and did leg extension, seated calf raises instead with Smith machine. Should I continue this process until next week and skip my jump session? Absolutely. You're doing everything correct. So I had a back flare up when Fabian was here and it was bad. Like I was in a lot of pain. You know, one of those moments where you're kind of like, I don't know if this is ever going to go away. Uh, I'm gonna have to learn to live with this. And it did eventually go away. But yeah, I didn't RDL, I didn't clean, I didn't squat front or back, exactly like you said, for like probably a month or two. And then I was only on the belt squat and so I was on the belt squat, I was on seated calf raise. I was able to like walk regularly and I did a lot of creative stuff with like power work on the belt squat. So I would like put bands on it to get the power work there. Jumping was hard, but I could do it sometimes. That was the day I basically was like, I'm gonna push my back. If there's one thing I'm gonna do, it's that is gonna like stress my back a bit. It's gonna be jumping. And I also added like some banded pull-off press, so anti-rotation, anti-flexion, because McGill Big Three was a little too easy, and all of those really, really helped a lot. So I would recommend keep doing what you're doing. Keep cutting out the things that are provocative. You're gonna feel it like that night or the next morning. That's when you're really gonna notice if you've overdid it, and it's gonna be a bitch, and it's not worth it. Like it sucks. So yeah, I would encourage you, give it time. Don't rush. You can still make really good progress doing other stuff. If you have leg extensions, do the exact sets and reps on the leg extension that the squats are listed. For calf raise work, just put in seated calf raise work. And then hamstring stuff, you could do lying hamstring curl. You know, you have a lot of different hip thrusts really help too. I would encourage you to do those. Banded hip thrust was super helpful. Instead of RDLs, I would do hip thrusts. Yep. That way
Okay.
you're still getting posterior chain and glute or lying hamstring curl. But I like hip thrust. It worked, especially with a band. It was really nice.
All right.
Easy to set up.
Thank you.
Yep. Just wanted to check in and let you guys know that as of today, I will have been with you guys for a year. I thought that was pretty cool. I just tested 40-inch vertical this past weekend. That's freaking awesome, bro. I was kind of curious, what kind of training cycles did I do this last year? Also, what does year two look like? So we always joke about like, there was a comment the other day on someone's Instagram and it was like phase nine injured me gang. And he was responding to Paul for Brits because Paul like commented on one of Tony's videos. And then one of his
Yeah.
athletes was like, phase nine injured me, gang. So you're like on phase 12. That's the best way I can explain it if we were to give it in Paul terms. So for you, you probably have, let me see here. Congrats on making it a year. That you're a testament to when people get better. It's just by staying the course.
hmm
All
Thanks.
right, let me see real quick here, Nolan. Yeah, you're like you're on pretty advanced training. Like you're doing hard stuff that makes you better long term and genuinely makes you like a better product. So
Yeah.
keep, carrying water, chopping wood. But in terms of what you did, let's go back a year and let's see. And for those of you in the call that are like, I don't know how to get better, just keep doing it. You'll get better. Okay, so you started
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
okay, you
I
started with
was gonna
load.
say one,
Oh, go ahead.
just
Go ahead.
one thing real quick. Yeah, sticking with it for a year. Um, like I always knew, like I was gonna be jumping higher because like I could just feel, obviously I was getting stronger and faster and everything. But it was kind of annoying because, like not in a bad way, but when I first started with you guys, I jumped like, I think it was like 30. I got on load management. I jumped like 39 or something like that. And I was like, man, I'm jumping like super high. And then um all of a sudden my vertical started going down. I think I was doing like 35, 36. And you guys said it was gonna go down. I was like, man, this kind of stinks. And then
Yeah,
this
no.
last weekend I went and played with some guys, got some adrenaline going, and I was like, dude, I am feeling good. So yeah, finally broke my
Broken into the
previous
40s,
record, but
dude. That's like
yeah,
you're at the part
and my
where
average
training
had
gets
gone
even
up. So
harder. Yeah, the cluster, your cluster. That's what
yeah,
I always tell people. I'm like, look at your cluster. Don't just look at your best days. Because
yep,
like it's hard to get back to your best day. But
yep,
when you look at your averages and all of your averages come up, like now you're like, oh, that was like a top, top 15 day or top 10 day or top 10 day, top
yep,
10 day. And then you realize like, oh, now my new top 10 is different and my bad
yep,
days are better than I've ever had. But maybe, yeah, you had that one outlier day, but now you're consistently
yep.
better and
But
better.
that's exactly how it was because I got my first ever dunk right after I started with you guys. And I was like, that's weird. And then didn't dunk until like 3 or 4 months ago at all. But
Yeah,
now
that's
I'm like
super
pretty
normal.
much every time I go out, I can get something in. So
That's
so
exactly the progress that I would expect, which is good. I
that's
mean,
cool.
that you just got to stay the course. That's always what I tell people.
Yeah.
It's like it's not gonna be linear. It's
Yep.
gonna undulate. All right, so let me
Yep.
share this real quick. All right, so first thing you did was the load management cycles. So these are really, really good. You're jumping twice a week. You're always going to notice like you feel really, really good and you can jump high on those. You did all of
Yep.
that progression. So you did all the way through like 6 months of that.
Okay.
And then it looks like we moved into some elastic work during this period of time.
Yep.
This is more elastic work. And then we did some more complex. We just got more and more complex with the training. So kind of moved into power after all the, yeah, it's a bit of both. It's like a blend of max strength and power. Yep,
Cool.
maintained that. So it's like power cycles. Same thing here. Then we went back to some elastic work. So you were, yeah, I mean, you pretty much were building up your work capacity with the volume and the intensity in the power work, and then we kind of touched on
Yep.
elasticity is what we were doing here, just getting like neurologically sound and fresh. All
Cool.
right. Then here, yeah, now this shit's hard. So this is just like this is kind of GPP, so you're doing a bit of everything. You've got heavy lifts, you've got fast running, you've got resisted sprints, you've got non-resisted sprints.
Yep.
Maintain that for a bit, and then now you're also progressing that this cycle. So now you're at the tail end of that. So yeah, to tell you definitively what it is, I mean, you started with load management cycles and then you got on long conjugate sequence systems, and that's why your vertical plummeted at first. Because
Cool.
long conjugate sequence systems are way freaking harder. Like they are the most intense, difficult thing you can do. But when you unload, you typically jump really, really high. You haven't really
Cool.
had a full unload, so if you want to just like back off from that, you can. But
No, I'm good. I just figured I'd stick with whatever you guys want to do.
yeah, whatever's
So,
working. So what
yep.
we'll probably do is you'll have 3 more months to finish this macro cycle. And then once you do that, we'll fully unload. We'll see where you're at. And then you're going to get into some of the other macro cycles. You actually haven't done the Prinz loop yet, which is one of the most
Okay.
vile, disgusting cycles I've ever written in my life, but it works incredibly well. So
Okay.
we could eventually do that, but more or less right now we're just making you a better athlete. We're taking the long-term athletic development route, and yeah, we're just developing you little by little each month.
All right.
And then eventually your ceiling is way higher because of it. So that's encouraging. Biggest thing is stay
Cool.
healthy. I mean, you've eaten up a lot of good workload, which is really, really encouraging.
Cool. Yeah, well, a last question about that is you said in about 3 months we'll unload all the way. Does it, or a lot, whatever you said, does
Yeah.
it actually make sense to do that? Or
You could right now you could, and even then you could.
well,
And both it would
I'm
make
not saying
sense.
now. I'm
Oh,
just
you're saying in three
like,
months? Yes, it makes sense because you're gonna have so much fatigue built up that
okay,
you're probably gonna jump higher each consecutive week. And
okay.
you don't even your body doesn't even remember what it feels like to be fresh.
I
So
know. I was
some
just thinking
some
about that.
people like some people don't like unloading fully, but I would at least give it a try in 3 months. That way you know for sure, or before then at some
Yeah.
point for 2 weeks. If your vertical goes up, then it's a clear cut sign you need to unload. Like your body needs it. But you're jumping higher under fatigue, which means you probably were mega fatigued, adapted to
Yeah.
it, and now under fatigue, you're jumping higher than you've ever jumped without
Yep.
unloading, which is very atypical. For outdoor volleyball players playing on sand and grass, do you think the same jump form applies? When I watch outdoor players, they seem to have smaller penultimate step. I'm guessing this is because of the ground surface. How should outdoor players think about their jump form then? So sand is a little different. Grass, I think they just suck. I just think they're really bad. The good guys do open up in grass. I don't think there's a lot of really, really good volleyball players on grass. Like I'm talking freaky, freaky players that are trying on grass. Grip is probably the biggest limiter. So that's maybe one thing. You're gonna feel a bit bouncier on grass. You're not gonna be able to bring in as much speed. So that's gonna change. So they might not open up, but the same concepts apply still. Sand, you're just gonna have longer loading because the ground contact time is so long. You're not gonna be able to like the curve, the shape of the force time curve is going to be different. But again, the concepts still apply. A lot of guys will like bounce into it because they want to load a lot of elastic energy and get off the ground really quickly. But for max jump height, you still want to use the same concepts. You just might not be able to bring in as much horizontal momentum. I mean, Isaiah, I haven't seen a high level guy on sand other than Connor Barth. Um, play sand volleyball. I've done it a handful of times and I do shorten my penultimate step as well. But I think that's this because you can't you can't move as far. Typically it's doubles and you have to rely on shorter ground contact times. If you're playing sixes, like I've never really seen too many people outdoors super high level play 6 on 6. They're really usually playing doubles. So I'll have to do some research on that. Okay, jump technique. How can I push more and have more time to exert force into the ground and create impulse without overextending my ground contact time? That is how you create impulse, is overextending your ground contact time. So it is a balance between being really fast and having the right ground contact time. Anytime I cue power through my block foot, I either feel slower through the movement or like I'm leaking energy and losing potential forces. That's because your block foot is not coming down fast enough. Your block foot should land almost the same time as your plant foot. That's how you transfer all the horizontal momentum vertically.